Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Hall with Forest Valley Outdoor Education Center, and I am here at Beaver Pond Trail in Algonquin Park, and I'm going to take you on a hike with me today to explore some of the local ecology and even see some evidence of how beavers can be ecosystem engineers. I'd like to take a moment to recognize that this is the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. And I'd also like to recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples here and across Turtle Island. At the beginning of the trail here, we can already start to see some evidence of the diversity of life. There are many different types of trees. This area is dominated by the firs and the pines that are common on the east side of Algonquin Park, and they grow here because of the abundance of sandy soil. So even the trees that are not alive are places where we can find lots of evidence of biodiversity, or the diversity of life on Earth. So here, on this dead standing tree, we can see evidence of mosses, and this is a moss here, and this is a special type of plant. It's called a non-vascular plant, which means it doesn't have the tubes to bring water and nutrients, and it doesn't have roots, so it gets everything it needs from the area that it grows on. And it gets its moisture from the rainfall, or in this case, snow. Living right beside the moss is an organism called Lichen. And this is Lichen. This bluey, greeny, gray organism here. And it's a super interesting organism because it's actually two types of living things that work together. They have a symbiotic relationship, which means they rely on each other, and they actually both benefit from each other. So this lichen is part fungus, which has attached itself to the tree, and its structure gives the algae, which is a photosynthesizing organism, a plant, a place to live and to absorb sunlight so that it can feed the entire plant. And if you look around, you'll see lots of different species, different types, shapes, colors, and you'll also see some fungus growing on this tree, starting to do the work of decomposing this dead tree back into soil for the rest of the forest. This is why when I go for a nature walk or a hike, I like to slow down and look closely at all of the details. There's so many interesting things happening, even when you least expect it. Continuing our walk, we can see a number of big, beautiful pine trees and some fir. And look, there is more evidence of organisms that are using this tree for a food source. You can see lots of evidence of insects boring and even woodpeckers who have using their beaks to access the insects that are hiding in the wood under the bark have made holes. By the size of this one, I would suspect it's a pileated woodpecker, which is one of the largest. So many examples to see how species interact with each other. And rely on each other. Humans can also use a lot of these trees to help us do well in the woods. For example, this fir tree, like most conifers, creates a resin, which is sort of like a protective liquid so that when insects or other creatures burrow under the bark, it protects the living part of the tree. So you can see here that there are some resin bubbles. And if you were ever in a situation where you needed to start a fire in the woods for your safety or to cook, then you could use this resin as a fire starter. So you would take something kind of sharp-ish, and if you put this in a flame, put it on some tinder, maybe some cedar, you could use this to help you start a fire even in the cold or when it is wet. So here along the trail is a really wonderful example of how moss can grow in the most interesting of locations and conditions. So you can see here that the moss is growing right on top of the rock. And it doesn't mind being on the rock. It doesn't need soil because this plant does not have roots. This is one of the most ancient plants that we have in the world today. There's over 17,000 species of moss. And they photosynthesize, so they use the sun to make energy for themselves. And they get their water from the air and the moisture around them. They can actually dry out and lose up to 98% of the water in their bodies and still survive. And then when rain comes, they will perk back up and continue to photosynthesize and grow. So it's a beautiful and snowy day here on the trail. And look, you can see some evidence of our ecosystem engineer. This is a beaver lodge. And the Beaver Lodge is amid a pond that has been dammed, which has created an aquatic habitat so that the beaver can create a home for itself and its family in the water. And it wants to create a home in the water so that it can be protected from its most abundant predator, which in this ecosystem is the Algonquin wolf. Now, it's possible that this specific beaver lodge is not active, that the beaver has actually abandoned it for now to move to another place where there is more food that it wants to eat over the winter. Beavers will fell trees and eat the inner bark over the winter, but it's actually not its preferred food in Algonquin Park. In Algonquin Park, the beaver would, in the summer and in the spring, be out on the ponds swimming and eating water lilies. And as it's eating the water lilies, it would very likely be uprooting them and replanting them in different places in the pond. So the Beaver Lodge, underneath this mound, is made up of sticks, it's made up of mud, and it will have an entrance from the water, and it'll have one area where the beaver will eat, so like an eating little platform, and then it will have a sleeping platform. So the beaver has many adaptations that help it fare very well in an aquatic environment. It has the ability to slow down its heart rate to conserve oxygen so it can stay longer under the water. It has flaps over its ears and nose and a flap over its mouth so it can eat and nibble under the water without getting water in its lungs or ingesting too much. It has webbed feet, which are amazing to help it swim. It's got a long flat tail that's used to propel, but also to slap the water and warn its kin of potential predators. And they have a community within the lodge, and all the family members contribute to the maintenance of the lodge. Beavers will breed between January and February, and the kits are born in May. And again, they learn to swim just 24 hours after they have been born. The beaver's fur is what really has led them to the brink of extinction. And the very waterproof and thick outer fur, in combination with the very dense and soft and insulating under fur, has made the beaver very highly sought after and very economically valuable during the fur trade. And you should come to visit Forest Valley to learn more about the beaver wars and the subsequent treaties, and how the beaver has played a very significant role in the shaping of this territory. So here we are, about to check out the beaver's feat of engineering. Now, it's a little bit covered in snow, but I think that you can see that the beaver here has constructed a dam. And this dam has pooled and created this pond ecosystem where you will often see a lot of wildlife that is dependent on this feat of engineering. Otherwise, the water would flow through like one of the many rivers in the park. So although you can't see it under here, I can assure you, having been here and seen this, that underneath the snow, the beavers have taken felled logs, sticks, mud, and rocks and positioned them to hold the water back so that this area will pool. And it's done so in just a way that it is facing the pooled water for maximum structure and stability. It's pretty remarkable. And again, the beaver does this so that it can benefit from the aquatic ecosystem that it has created. You can see up here, we've got some tracks. Looks to me, by the size and the shape and the pattern, that those could be fox tracks. So I'm here trying to cross this path to go and take a closer look at the pond, and there's a fallen tree in my path. Now, this fallen tree is full of incredible lichen. And as you might remember, that's a really good indicator of clean air, because lichen are bioindicators and they do not tolerate air pollution. And you can see in the background, just at the bottom of where the trees, you can start to see the trees, is another lodge. I'm not sure that this lodge is active and if there are beavers living here or not, but this is the perfect habitat for them. And they would also share this habitat with other aquatic animals like ducks who would otherwise not live here if it were not for the beavers' engineering of this pond. Also, this is a great habitat for moose, and they're often seen along the water's edge in the summer, nibbling again on the water lilies and the aquatic plants, and then in the winter on the hemlock needles and sometimes bark. So the river otters are also very well adapted to the water. They will have their own dens either at the shore, or they will take over other dens like coyote or fox dens. They're very playful creatures. They love to swim and slide down rocks and down narrow pathways. And they have a long tail. They have webbed feet to help them swim. They have a flat head that helps them navigate the water. And in my opinion, they're among the cutest of the animals here in the park and in the country, really. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed your hike today and you learned a little something about ecology and beavers. So feel free to reach out to us at Toes or at Forest Valley. Forest Valley has a number of secondary programs that are connected to the curriculum to help foster relationships with your students to the outdoors. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you have any questions or you'd like to book a visit with us. Thanks so much.